All right. And fire up my PowerPoint, and off we go to the races. Okay, David, I'm going to start sharing.
Okay.
Can you see my screen, David?
Yes, I can.
All right, so we're going to get started. My name is Vinny Gupta, and I am a co-founder of UCEazy. And we are going to be with you for almost an hour today, me and David Campos, who I will introduce in just a few minutes. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. Number one, if you have any questions, you would see a little Q&A box in your toolbar. Please type your questions there. If you have any housekeeping type questions, I will be your host today. You can type that in the chat window. Now, you can see us, you can hear us, but we cannot see you or hear you. So just to let you know, there is another feature in this application, the video application, called Raise Your Hand. Now, that feature, please don't, you can do it, but unfortunately, we'll not be able to respond to it. So those are just some of the housekeeping things before we get started. So the topic for today is, David, do you want to mute yourself, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the topic for today is, how does one get into a top-tier college? So let's start, first of all, let's start with a definition of what a top-tier college is. So the majority of the audience today is from California. So just to give you a California-centric example, if you look at, say, a San Jose State University or a California State University East Bay in Hayward, those, while being good colleges or universities, we are not considering them in the discussion for today. Today, we're talking about the top-tier private colleges like Stanford, Caltech, or University of Chicago, or the Ivy Leagues, or we're talking about the top-tier UCs. Just to be very clear, we are not saying that a San Jose State University is not a good college. And some of you, the parents especially, may have gone there, or some of you, if you're students, your siblings may have gone there. All we are saying is that the conversation today is about what do you need to do differently to get into a top-ranked college if you aspire to go there. So let me start with a reality check. Over the last 10 years, when we talk about top-tier colleges, over the last 10 years, the applications have doubled. So as you can see on the screen, from 2007 to 2017, the number of applicants to these top-tier colleges have doubled. Also, for those of you who are numbers-minded, please note that this graph is still pointing up. It hasn't flattened down. So the number of applications is still increasing. Now, let's watch the next slide. Acceptances. While the numbers have gone up, the acceptances have gone down by exactly 50%. Now, most of you might be thinking, what's the big deal? If the numbers have gone up by double, the acceptances have gone down by half. The message here is that the number of seats, the number of openings, the capacity, the number of students that these top-tier colleges can admit has remained pretty much stagnant. And in the foreseeable future, there is no indication that that will change. So which means that, especially for my friend Shomitra, who is on this webinar today, his son is in 8th grade. By the time, Sumitra, your child applies 4 years from now, 5 years from now, this situation will only worsen from the perspective of a top-tier college admissions. So given the problem statement, given what we are looking at, this seminar today is about the need to think differently. And that is what the spirit and the tone of today's conversation would be, especially if you are a family where the parents are first or second generation immigrants into this country. So my friend Sumitra, I'll keep picking on him, even though I can't see you. He's a first generation immigrant, so am I, because we were born in another country. We did not go to a 4-year high school in the US, and also we did not go to a 4-year college here. We are first generation immigrants. And today we're going to talk a lot about how the mindset of a first or second generation immigrant parent and the students from their families, how that mindset needs to change if you and your child aspires to a top-tier college. Before I talk about UCEazy, I want to quickly share a video with you. Hopefully I can get the audio right. We did practice it yesterday. Give me 1 second. All right, so let's see what happens here. I'm not sharing yet, so give me 1 second. Okay, so let me go back, share this. Okay, almost coming up. Okay, David, can you see, if you can unmute yourself, can you see my video screen?
Yes, I see your screen.
Okay, so I'm going to start playing this.
Okay.
All right, guys, here we go.
Meet 2 high school students, Raj and Kyle. Kyle goes to private school, where college admissions experts spend large amounts of time to help students get into their dream college. His parents went to Yale, which means they can guide him in what he needs to do in high school to get into a top-notch university. With an upper hand both at home and at school, Kyle will be admitted to one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Meanwhile, Raj, like most children from immigrant families, goes to public school. The student-to-college counselor ratio at his school is 2,000 to 1. Without a college admissions expert to allocate enough time to make his application stand out, Raj can very easily become 1 in a million. For Raj's parents, who didn't go to an American university or 4-year college, the system can be very confusing. To beat the odds, Raj will need help that he can't get from school or at home. That's where UCEazy comes in. We can help level the playing field for students from first-generation immigrant families. UCEazy, University and College Admissions, made easy.
David, did the sound come through fine?
Sound came in great, yes.
Okay. So let me go back to sharing my PowerPoint. So I just wanted to quickly introduce UCEazy and then bring on Mr. Campos, David Campos, for talking about the actual topic about the science of getting into a top-tier college. So UCEazy, I'm a co-founder of UCEazy, and we started UCEazy, as would be clear by now, hopefully. Our mission is to help students from first and second generation immigrant families become the most competitive that they can be for admission to top-tier colleges. Why? Because me and my co-founder, VK Koladi, we are both first-generation immigrants. From our personal experience with our own children, we realized that regardless of how smart we were from the countries we came from, or regardless of how good colleges we went to back in whichever country we came from, none of that really matters. We felt like a fish out of water in this country when it came to college admissions. Inspired by that, we said, let's start a company where no one should go through the same anxiety that we did. So what we do is, and I'll talk about this in detail later on. What we do is that we have a large team of college admission experts that can work with you and your child from as early as 8th grade. It doesn't matter if your child is in 11th or 12th, or even in a community college looking for a transfer, we can help all of you, but the ideal time to start is 8th grade. So one of our experts will work with your child and guide the child on every step of this journey. Again, the goal is to make the child the most competitive he or she can be. One more point I wanted to make is that we have a social mission. While we are a business, we want to give back. So this private counseling that we provide, that most of our clients pay for, we provide the same quality guidance to 50 students every year that are from low income, first generation immigrant families. And that's a part of our giving back. And if any of you want to join us in giving back to the community, we would welcome either your money or your time, or even introduction to deserving students. Almost there in terms of bringing Mr. Campos in our agenda for today. The first bullet would be David Campos. He'll talk about how to think differently for getting into top colleges, and then he will take a few questions. Then I will come back, I will share with you how can you engage with UCEazy, where is additional help available. So let me quickly introduce Mr. David Campos, who you can see on your video. He is one of our college admission experts that you could potentially engage with if you wanted our help. David's big achievement in life, especially for the students on our webinar, is David got admitted to every single college and university that he applied to. Finally, he joined Stanford, and that's where he graduated from. He wanted to give back, so is now working at a public high school where he's a school counselor and a college admissions expert. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to David. He'll talk a little bit more about himself and guide you through the process. Again, if you have any questions while he's talking, he will not be able to see your questions, but I will be. I'll try to answer those. Otherwise, David will take those questions live at the end of his presentation. David, welcome. And you might want to just adjust your camera a little bit so that we can see all of your face.
How's that, Vinny?
Just one second. Let me stop sharing and see what happens. No, a little bit different. Better.
Is that better?
Slightly, yes. If your head, this is perfect. Thank you and welcome, David.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, Vinny. I am going to pull up my slide deck right now. Give me 1 second. Vinny, can you see my slide deck?
Yes, absolutely. We can.
Perfect.
Thanks, David.
Okay. So as Vinny was saying, first of all, welcome everyone for joining, and feel free to ask any questions that you guys have later through the Q&A portion. Just as Vinny was iterating, not only do I work at a public school, but I also work at a public community college in addition to that. And part of the reason why I am doing the public counseling is because I like the fact that I have been accepted to a lot of these universities, so I have an understanding of how to help first and second generation immigrants, and of course, just my general population at the schools. I just wanted to share this little photo with you. My wife and I just got married last year in San Francisco, and my wife is actually a Harvard graduate, and I am the Stanford graduate. So interestingly enough, we took one of our photos in a library setting at a Harvard club in San Francisco. So as you can see that my wife and I don't really get to escape the library very often. And we brought it back a little bit to, some of our origins, which is a lot of time in the library to get into the schools that we got into. So that's just a quick little blurb about myself. And that photo hopefully gives you an idea that, obviously books and learning is very important to us. And my wife is actually a first generation immigrant to this country. and has gone through some of the similar things. My dad is a first generation also to this country. He happened to go to college in this country. My wife's parents did not. So that perspective is also important because I do understand what it is like to be coming from an immigrant family. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about college admissions, more so from the perspective that the quantifiable data that you look for in an application is not as important, especially not as important as it was maybe in the past and in other countries. So just as Vinny was talking about, we're thinking top tier colleges are those with a low acceptance rate and also typically a high yield rate, meaning a lot of students would like to go to this university if they were accepted. So the vast majority of people accepted to Stanford or an Ivy League or an MIT or University of Chicago would indubitably go to those colleges and, you know, basically reject some other offers that they may have. So that is what we're talking about today, top tier colleges. Okay, so my first topic is grades, of course. Now, grades are very, very important, but they're really only one step in the door, so to speak. A lot of people have good grades, and thus you can't be qualified or objectively analyzed just through your grades alone, because there are so many people that have a 4.0 GPA. So it's great to aim to be perfect, but that doesn't always happen. And what happens is if you are aiming to be perfect in the academic realm and in the classroom, sometimes you forget to spend time basically perfecting your resume, doing things that are social in nature, and expanding your horizon. And that doesn't always happen when you're only looking at grades. So one thing I wanted to point out too within the grades is there are weighted and non-weighted GPAs. And what I want to focus on within that comment is that weighted GPAs and non-weighted GPAs are very, very valuable in some ways. And what that means, and what that means is that you don't want to put all your eggs into the weighted GPA basket, because to increase your weighted GPA, you have to take a lot of AP classes. And sometimes there needs to be a balance so that your time can be spent on extracurricular activities or doing things that are going to develop you as a holistic person rather than just in someone who is focused on academics. So I want you to consider the fact that sometimes taking 3 AP classes might be better than taking 5. If in those situations where you take 5, your weighted GPA goes up, but your non-weighted GPA goes down because you are focusing so much on those AP classes and those studying, you sometimes lose track of what is equally important, which is your extracurricular activities. So that is important. One statistic that I want to leave you with when we think about grades is that 2 years ago, the class at Stanford who was admitted, they were admitted at a 4.8 percentage. That is a very low, and in fact, it's the lowest in the past 2 years. Stanford has had the most difficult, applicants have had the most difficult time getting into Stanford. But the statistic that really, really, really is important to me is that of those admitted applicants 2 years ago, 4% of them, which is roughly 70 applicants, had below a 3.7 GPA. And what that means to me is that they are obviously doing something well beyond just their grades for them to have been admitted to such a prestigious university. So to me, that means that we need to spend very often less time in the books and more time developing yourself in the community. And in the community, just not just in your local community, but beyond that. So remember, 4% were admitted with a 3.7 GPA. So consider that as a statistic that I think you need to consider long term, is that there are people that are doing much more than just studying or much more than just reading books. Okay? SAT and ACT. Although they are very important variables and you want to spend time and effort studying for that, I believe that colleges and universities very much know that students are paying for this. They're paying a lot of money to go to the Kaplans, the Revolution Preps, the other organizations that can help build those scores. But to me, it's not about spending that time or that money on SAT scores, because if you are spending hours upon hours on the weekend studying for the SAT, you're also not spending hours upon hours developing yourself in community service activities, expanding a club on campus, starting your own club organization off campus. So there's an opportunity cost to studying too much for an SAT test or an ACT test. So what I would say is, don't spend so much time studying it. What you want to do is, in time, build your confidence, take practice tests, study small chunks from freshman year to maybe junior year being the year that you might be most ready, assuming that you have taken Algebra 2 and exceeded that math, because that is the basic math that you need. So please make sure that you are not spending too much time on that studying and focusing quite a bit more on other aspects that are sometimes intangible, but very, very key when colleges review your application. Okay? And the other thing is, have people time you. You can study for the SAT on the Khan Academy. Your parents can give you practice tests. There are a lot of pamphlets that you can get from the career centers at your local high schools. So please practice, and practice a lot, but don't let it eat up your time and take away from your developing a resume or something that is high impact when colleges are looking at your holistic application. Okay? And this one right here is the start of really why we are here today. We want you to develop yourself holistically. And that can be anything from community service, club participation, leaving your comfort zone, as I put on the screen, doing something creative, creating an app, going on an internship that not many of your peers have, going to a summer program that is prestigious in nature, such as at Stanford, such as at MIT, et cetera, et cetera. So one point that I wanted to point out was that extracurricular activities at your school, such as National Honor Society, California Scholarship Federation, which is CSF, the tutoring organization on campus, Key Club, Science Olympiad, robotics, all these things happen to be on your campus. And what that means is that there are a lot of students, there could be thousands of students on your campus. There could be thousands of students at other campuses. What that means is those activities, although very important, are very, very baseline or foundational. They are not going to necessarily set you apart because, as you can imagine, some of these prestigious universities, most students are doing that. I would say I did 100% of those activities, but it's not about doing them. It's about doing them well, spending a lot of time, making your campus better because you were involved in these activities. But remember, they're baseline. So you need to leave your comfort zone and go off and do something that's bigger than that. And when I say comfort zone, is if you live in some of these well-resourced communities, you need to consider going to communities that do not have a lot of resources. I would use the examples of course, Oakland or Hayward or Richmond, or areas where there's not a lot of money and not a lot of opportunity sometimes to go to college, in the sense that they don't have SAT or they can't afford that practice. So if you're going to do community service, make sure you're doing it in those type of regions or those type of areas, because if you do it in your own home community, imagine how many other students are also doing that same thing, okay? So other examples that I've seen that are very useful are people basically will enter into a science fair or a science competition in Santa Clara County or other counties and do this individually as opposed to a team. In a team, there's always a mentor or a faculty member who's guiding you. But if you do it individually, that means you are taking it upon yourself to get better and to practice. Doesn't matter how you score in these competitions, but as long as you're practicing that. And then I would just give your attention to some programs such as Cosmos through the UC. Those are science-based programs. Or starting a nonprofit of some sort, or creating an app. These kind of things need to be high impact. And when they are in your local community, sometimes they lose that high impact value. Letters of recommendation are also very important, just as much as your personal statements, which we will talk about next. So my point for letters of recommendation is that you will be ranked by your teachers, by people in the community that know you well. So make sure they are the best. And that's why I use the word superlative. That person is the best, or that person is in the top 1%. Make sure you shine in some way. And usually that shining comes through developing a high impact resume. So make sure you also talk to your teachers and engage your counselors at the public schools. Engage them often, ask them questions, show them that you have a lot of substance. And the only way to do that is to do it over and over again and practice that with them. Okay, personal statement. This is something that could be developed through the activities that you have created in the last years of your high school, such as 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. You can use those to create creative personal statements or to tell a story that is unique. And these will take a lot of your time. Seniors that I work with and that our other counselors work with spend hours upon hours perfecting these personal statements. And that is one reason why someone would ask a counselor for guidance, is because we have that opportunity to give you personal reviews often and with quality comments. So personal statements are hugely important, probably the most important aspect of your application. And those can only be created well if you are overcoming obstacles, trying things in the community, and developing a resume. Those are typically where your statements or your your stories come out the best. Okay, and finally, just some extra strategies that are very important. A lot of our counselors talk about major selection or finding a major that is going to make you competitive. In a world where engineering, pre-med, biology, chemistry, physics are very, very popular and common, it is sometimes very important to find majors that are related, but quite different, maybe in different departments. An example of that is UC Davis offers a biological psychology program. And why that is important is because sometimes it is a little bit easier to get into departments such as that than getting into the biological science department. So there's definitely strategy in picking your major. Course planning is very important. We want you to balance your time between AP and honors courses, but also your time with your extracurricular activities. So course planning can take a lot of time, but it's very key because you will have hopefully a balance, maybe 3 or 4 AP classes rather than 5 or 6, get too carried away and then have little time for your activities. And my final point would be choosing a wide variety of colleges. We can all match to and get accepted into some of the middle tier colleges, and sometimes we want to reach for others. So creating a list and editing it and erasing some colleges or adding to it is very key. So don't wait until senior year to do that. So these are just some strategies to improve your planning, and definitely any UCEazy counselor would be able to help with that. So I think you need to ask for guidance as often as you can along the way. Okay. Vinny, I stop sharing now.
All right, David, you went pretty fast with that stuff. So that's awesome. So I was actually responding to some questions here. So perhaps you can answer them live. So I'm going to cancel my responses and see whether you want to respond to those questions.
Okay. Is this in this chat or question and answer? Okay. Yes. The first question is, how many recommendation letters and from which teachers? Okay. So they're on the Common App, which is your application to private colleges, such as your MITs, your Stanfords, your Harvards. You can submit up to 3 letters of recommendation. That is probably the best, because what my rule of thumb is 2 letters of recommendation need to be from a teacher at your school. Ideally, if you're in the math field or science field, you want a math or science teacher or both. And if you are more of an arts and humanities, you probably want teachers that can write something about your writing ability or your public speaking. Teachers should, honestly, they should come from 10th grade or 11th grade. But ideally, I would say 11th grade, especially in the situation where you've had that teacher as a 10th grader, meaning 2 years in a row. If you cannot find someone that's a 10th or an 11th grade teacher, it might be also good to ask a teacher who is currently teaching you as a senior and go from there. So there's a lot of flexibility, but the thing is there's strategy to it. And I help students with that at my public school and, of course, with the private UCEazy counseling. So that is something that you want to ask a counselor very often, and don't wait until junior year. You should be planning this probably by your sophomore year. Get an idea of who you want to ask. And the third letter of recommendation would be from somebody in the community, ideally, meaning that person knows you through the relationship you've created. Maybe they're a member of some organization that offers service in the community, or maybe they helped you start your nonprofit, or maybe they guided you through a lot of the endeavors that you were doing well beyond your local community. That type of a person would see how you've developed over time and probably be the best use of your third letter of recommendation. So that would be my rule of thumb. 3 is perfect, 2 is great. If you have 1, you can get away with that, but it's not the best. So, and also on top of that, a counselor will write a recommendation for you, submit your transcript, and rank you according to how you stack up among the academic and other activities that you do. So there's always going to be a ranking system, even for the teacher too. So I hope that answers your question. Did that come across, Vinny? Perfect. Okay, I have another question. This question is, in extracurricular activities, would you recommend doing internships in the summer, and which area would be competitive? Well, knowing that a lot of my students do this throughout the school year, I don't think the summer is good enough. You may start in the summer, maybe as a sophomore or something, and that's great. But what you should do is continue it over time. Schools want to see that you are committed to an internship or committed to an activity, and that you don't just do it for 10 weeks and then move on. Competitive areas, I would say some of the the most competitive areas are probably in hospitals. If you can find some in the tech industry, great. But my friends who work in the tech industry say their companies, such as Apple and LG, they do not offer internships. So that's very, very difficult to find. I think the best ones, of course, are working with maybe professors, whether they're community college professors or four-year college professors. Those internships or research opportunities are also valuable. But the ones that I've seen to be the easiest are Kaiser and other hospitals offering some of these internships. So that one is a great question and needs to be probably strategized a little bit more in detail based upon your major or based upon your interests. So business or law, those would be other areas that you could consider. Okay. And can you have 4 or more recommendations? You cannot submit 4 or more recommendations, but you can request them. What that means is that maybe for one college, such as Stanford, you request 3, and then maybe you apply to Harvard, and maybe this teacher or this counselor is a graduate of Harvard. Maybe you want to use that 4th one as an optional one and then take away another one. So typically you're only going to be allowed to submit 3. Now, if a college for some reason allows you to submit 4, that would be a question, and it could be dependent upon which college that is. But typically, through a Common App, I usually have students submit 3. There could be optional spaces if the college allows it, but typically you're looking at 3 letters of recommendation. Another question, can we get recommendation letters from karate teachers since my son is in a second degree black belt? He's going to karate. I think that is a great letter of recommendation for the character aspect of the application, because as you can imagine, a karate teacher is going to know your son's character. your son's perseverance, your son's work ethic. I think that is very important. What I would also like to do is maybe this karate teacher is a mentor in some way and challenges your son as he gets older to focus on academics, to work as a well-rounded student. I think the more and more you integrate academic aspects of the karate background and aspects about your son's development within the community, that letter of recommendation can be stronger and stronger. So I think it would be very, very useful over time to see how your son develops and see how that karate teacher sees your son developing. Because he or she, that teacher, is going to be giving your son feedback over time. And as a parent, as you see that feedback and write that feedback down, you're going to know if the letter of recommendation is going to be a solid one, an average one, or a not so good one. And you want it to be solid, of course. So what I would also say is make sure this karate teacher is probably not a personal friend, because that is also going to be transparent in the letter of recommendation, in the sense that the karate teacher, if they talk about personal nature, such as I have known this student since birth because my friend is his father or mother or whatever, I think that gets a little bit too personal. So try to make it as objective as possible. And if it's a family friend, be very careful. And that's what you would ask a counselor to see what they think. Because I've had students ask, is this too personal? And I would straight up say, hey, yes, this is. So be very careful. You don't want it to be too personal. Okay? So does volunteering help in adding strength to the resume? Volunteering, of course, does. But volunteering in itself is not of value if it's not related to maybe a skill set that you're trying to share with the community. So, for example, if I'm a mathematician or I'm a coder and I have the skill in X, Y, and Z area, that's the volunteering that I should probably be doing, because I can not only show a career interest or a skill, but I can also give back my time. And remember, like I said earlier, it's about commitment. It's not about 100 hours here and there. It's about constant effort towards 1 or 2 volunteering opportunities rather than 5 or 10. I find my seniors doing way too many volunteer activities, but they lack depth. So that is what you really need to focus on. It's volunteering with purpose and with depth.
Hey, David.
Yes.
So let's do this. Let's continue with more questions.
Sure.
Let me I just wanted to go through some
of your slides. Yeah.
A little bit more of the key message that we are trying to communicate, that
Sure.
especially parents themselves need to start thinking differently.
Definitely.
So before we go into all of these details, which are important, I just want to make sure that we communicate the strategic message to all.
Okay, sounds great.
To the audience, you please feel free to send in more questions. So I'm going to take maybe 5 or 7 minutes, and then David is going to come back and take more questions. So David, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, sounds good.
Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
And then you can mute yourself just to cut some of that ambient noise. So guys, I'm going to, over the next 5 or 7 minutes, I'm going to talk more as a parent. So David Campos is a college admissions expert. As I mentioned before, me and my co-founder, we started UCEazy because we as first-generation immigrant parents dealt with that anxiety that we don't want you to feel. So take a look at all the stuff that David talked about. Take a look at the message on your screen. This is not something I created. This is attributed to the college admissions department of a very high-end private school in Los Angeles, where their buildings look like Stanford. Their annual tuition fee is $60,000, as much as what Stanford would charge. Their college admissions department is the envy of everyone. 95% of their students go to the top 10% colleges in this country. What I'm sharing with you on the screen is from their website. Please pay very close attention. to what is given here. And if you want to take one slide away from this webinar today, is this slide. So what are we trying to say here? Remember, the topic for today is the need to think beyond grades and test scores. What we are saying here, if I start to summarize what's on the screen and what David talked about, is that to get to a top-tier college, good grades, good test scores, they are necessary. You need those, but that's not enough. So to the students on this call, whatever David talked about, Mr. Campos is not saying that you should not get good grades. What we are saying is you need to get good grades, you need to get good test scores, but you need to develop the whole student. So to the parents that are from other countries, say India or China, on this webinar today, most of our college admissions back there were testing our mind, which was measured by our scores, our results in some kind of standardized exam at the grade 12th level or an entrance exam. Here, the colleges are looking for the whole child, not just your mind, but if I can simplify, your heart as well. So not superiority of your mind only, but what else is it? How do you think? What is your personality attributes? How do you view the world? But above all, are you that special and unique child that they want to admit? And to the parents on this call, my advice or my ask of you would be, especially parents on this call like Shumitra in 8th grade, think about developing a unique and special child that actually thinks differently than others. Remember all the terms on this slide that you're seeing: self-motivated. If you are hustling them to stay awake in the night to get good grades, now that in itself is not a top-tier journey, right? They need to be explorers, which means try out, do new things on their own, independent thinkers. So I actually wrote a blog that has been published in several publications, which I can send to you, which is about role of parenting in admission to top-tier colleges. So let's think about that. David talked about extracurricular activities, but at the end of the day, guys, special and unique child that is creating their own track and not following others. Example, a lot of the questions that you guys are asking today on the Q&A window, with all due respect to you, because I was like you, questions are about volunteer work and all that. My question to you would be, what is so unique about volunteerism? You do volunteerism if it helps your soul, you feel good about it, that's why you volunteer, but only to game the college admission system? No, because like David said, it will show very quickly. So think about unique extracurricular activities. Why volunteerism only? Why internship only? Create your own path. And at a different webinar, we'll talk about what kind of unique extracurriculars you can do, or if you engage with a UCEazy counselor, they can share that. Okay, so the next slide here is what is our advice for students? So just to summarize, number one, we already covered think beyond just grade and test scores. That's necessary, but not enough. The second one is start planning early. Your foundation is laid early in 8th and 9th grade, both for coursework and for extracurriculars. You need to start early. Number three, work with your parents to get you expert advice on college admissions. If you go to our website, you will see that in our US public high schools, there's very little help available on college admissions. The ratio on our website, if you go there, or the video that I played for you, 2,000 to 1. The private college or the private high school in LA, Los Angeles, that I talked about, their ratio is 50 to 1. How would you compete with a kid from that high school without help? And then as parents, you need to think about Are you able to help your child in a US context? So work with your parents to sign up with an expert. Advice for parents, again, is summary. Develop a whole child, not academics alone. Develop unique, independent thinking. Number two, when we think of, so we're working with first and second generation immigrant families. We're constantly trying to figure out what more can we do. And we're realizing that one of the big competitive disadvantages that an immigrant family has is that the parents did not go to a US high school. Now compare this family, compare my family with, say, Mrs. and Mr. Smith, a Caucasian family whose ancestors came from Italy 200 years back. Mrs. and Mr. Smith went to a US high school. Now think about that Mrs. and Mr. Gupta, that's me, can we or could we have guided our child on the US high school journey similar to Mrs. and Mr. Smith? And we are realizing there's a huge gap there. So one of the things that we have started doing is a seminar series, actually webinar series. The first one is next Sunday, which David Campos will be hosting on different aspects of the US high school journey. Nobody else is teaching you that, right? Not your school district, or your city government. So we are filling that role. So go to our site in the event section, and that's where you would see our webinar listed for next Sunday. It's a 4-part series. The first one is next Sunday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And again, DIY, do it yourself. We are smart people. We can solve odd problems. That's why we are in Silicon Valley and similar places. But do you really want to experiment all of this from a college admissions perspective? It's your decision. So how can UCEazy help? The way we help is that we have a team of 25 experts similar to David Campos who can work with your child on a one-on-one basis. This is like private coaching, similar to private tennis lessons or private music or private physics lessons. And we have full curriculums that we follow, or you can come to us for specific things. Like, for example, I see there are several 12th graders on this call. So if you guys are stressing out about college essays, we can help you. We have several experts on our team that are currently application and essay readers for UCs or private colleges. We can help you with essays. We can help you with financial aid. We're currently supporting 500 students, and that's our address to learn more. Now, the way our curriculums work, this is just as an example. In 8th and 9th grade, we're going to help you. So Shumitra, just to take your example, since your child is in 8th grade, we will help you with extracurricular strategy. As would have been obvious from David's presentation and your questions, this is a big, big thing. The second is course selection for 9th grade, which generally we have seen as a highly stressful activity for any family, especially a first-generation immigrant family. The third is how to make the best use of summer. And the fourth is in May or June of 8th grade, we will guide you on what should you expect in day one of a US high school. Similarly, for 9th grade, when you start, we will help you in terms of how best to prepare for day one in high school. And then we will meet you again and ask you and the student, what is stressing you out? All different aspects of high school, academia, ability to make friends, balancing time between classwork and extracurricular, social life, all of that. In 10th grade, we start thinking of other things like testing strategy, which test to take first, SAT or ACT when, how to prepare, how do you start thinking about what to study in college, which is majors, etc. So it's a full-on program that runs all the way till you accept your final college on May 1st of the senior year. The way you work with us is step one, contact us for a free 30-minute session where one of our experts will understand your student's specific situation and your aspirations and guide you how best to work with us. The second step is to start with 1 hour consultation with us and then upgrade to a package, or if you just want little bit help, you can do that too. We have monthly payment plans available to make this affordable for most families, which I'll talk about in 1 second. And then for today's attendees, if you want to start somewhere, which we strongly recommend you do instead of overthinking this, we will do the first hour for $100, provided you place your order by tomorrow. Our monthly payment plans, how do they work? 12th grade is a little different because you only have less than 45 days to apply. For UCs, your deadline is end of this month, so we are not talking about that here. That information is on our website. For 8th graders, our monthly plan is $80, which is 8 installments from now until June 30th, and so on and so forth.
Vinny,
Did I mute myself?
you muted yourself the entire time.
Oh, shucks. Okay, that is so bad. Okay, so what can we do? Okay, so why don't we have you take questions?
Sure.
I know there was some desperate chat messages.
And you can go back if you need to. Well, I'll answer some of these questions if you like.
Oh, shucks. This huge pilot error, huh?
Do you want to continue that, or do you want me to answer the question?
No. Okay, I just wanted to take then one slide here.
Sure.
And then so the only thing I wanted to talk about, guys, here is in terms of working with a UCEazy expert, that's the information. We will send this via email also. And the way to start is in that meeting, we will look at your situation, your aspirations, and we will suggest the best way to engage with us. And then you can start with just 1 hour with one of our experts and then decide what to do. And just for today's attendees, we have a special offer for $100 for the first hour. Here are the monthly payment plans to make it affordable for most families. And so I'm going to skip all this, and then since it's my bad, and have David take questions.
Okay, so let me pick up where I left off. So the question was playing sports at a national level. Vinny, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Do colleges like that? So let me answer that. So yes and no. Colleges like that you're playing sports because you're committed to it for 4 years and they understand that you play a lot and it takes a lot of your time. But here's the challenge, is if the sport is not going to be a sport that you play at the college level, such as Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, I could give you ex-athlete. It's a challenge because you're spending a lot of time, but college sports is meant for scholarship purposes, and it's usually not academic focus. You can be a scholar athlete. Yes, that's great. But if it takes away from your time to share other aspects of your life, such as your community service or any other extracurriculars that you could develop, you have to be really careful. So my point would be to maybe use that sport in one sport only, rather than use 3 sports that you might shine at. So that one is a very, very, very difficult question to answer. And I think you would want to consult someone for that. because like I said, if you're not Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan, you could be spending a lot of time and effort on the sport, but not selling yourself in terms of what you're capable of in your career. So you have to be very, very careful. An example would, of course, be a little bit better for this answer, but if you want to add more to that, I could answer it. So let me move on to the next one for the sake of time. Companies like Google and Apple, do they pick students from which colleges? Well, I could say that it doesn't necessarily matter which college you go to if you've shown in some manner that you've gone above and beyond just your book work, or you've perfected a skill above and beyond what you could get in the class. You've practiced it. You started something from scratch. Entrepreneurs, as you can imagine, are very well liked in any industry because they're self-starters, they're dedicated, they work hard. So it doesn't necessarily matter at which school. But yes, I can tell you that my Stanford peers, my wife's Harvard peers are very much going to shine because of that brand name school. But that doesn't always mean that they are going to be the best or shine all the time. So yes, it will help you and it definitely will get you your foot in the door, but it doesn't always mean that you will be the best and that Apple and Google will choose you. So that one's a little bit, it depends. You would have to be able to look at a resume and be very critical of it. This question right here is about a student joining as a freshman after moving from Singapore. Is that person at a disadvantage to take certain AP classes due to this move? Well, if the reason why they would be disadvantaged in AP classes is because of the language, English, and I don't suspect that because Singapore English is spoken quite a lot, I would not suspect they're at a disadvantage. That is a very specific question that would require more time, but I'll leave it at this. If the student feels like they did not spend enough time in AP classes, the UC and the private school applications have a section for you to explain any extra details that might have affected your academics, but that you haven't already spoken about. So that question is very specific, but I can leave it at that short answer and come back to it if needed. Okay. In volunteering, is it good to volunteer with kids like to teach or play sports and spend time to improve their overall development? Does this show leadership role in helping kids? Yeah, it does. But remember, I think what we are doing is that we are trying to help probably more so in the realm of academic development. Yes, personal, emotional, those are very, very key. But again, you also want it to relate to your own career because that's essentially what you're showing. So yes, let's say you help a kid grow physically and emotionally. That could be one service activity. But I think another volunteer activity needs to also be correlated in somehow to your long-term career goals. So I think, yes, that is a qualifier, physical and emotional development, but I think you also want to help students in their academic development as well. So I think all of that is very important. So picking that kind of an activity would certainly want to be reviewed by a counselor or another expert before you jump into something like that. Another question, do you also help with pre-med track, business school, medical school, and which college is good for pre-med? Well, pre-med is not a major. So pre-med, anyone can access that at any college. Now, to give you an example, when I met with a friend who is in the medical school at Davis, he was a friend of mine at Stanford. All of his colleagues that he named that were in that room were from UCLA, Davis, Berkeley, Stanford, UCEazy. These are all California schools, of course. They were all from UCs, top UCs, or Stanford, my friend. So there, of course, are schools that are well known for research and to prepare you for pre-med. Some schools better prepare you for business school. So yes, there are counselors that help. I have a lot of experience in this. And my wife is a business school graduate. So is my brother. And so yes, there are counselors that have that experience. And that is a great question because you're thinking well beyond just your undergraduate. So don't think in terms of these tracks, think in terms of which college may better prepare you for a professional degree such as medical or business. That's the key, I think.
David?
Mm-hmm.
So since we are at the top of the hour, I just wanted to, so a couple of things for our audience. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to play a video for you, just 1 minute. And what we'll do is that since unfortunately I muted myself, I'm going to repeat those slides for those of you who want to hang around. But for the others, after the video, if you wanted to leave, but please do fill the poll section. It's really important for us to get your feedback. So let me share this. And also I wanted to put a quick plug for the seminars and webinars next weekend. These are on our website. The first is that for Bay Area audience, we are doing a seminar in Milpitas, which is on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. And then next Sunday at 4 p.m. PST, we will be doing our first of a 4-part webinar series on educating parents on the US high school systems. All these events are completely free. So let me now share that video. Just 1 second. David, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. It's perfect.
Okay. All right.
If you could turn back time and change one thing in your life, what would it be? When it comes to your child, it might be many things. The day she leaves for college, you sit in her bedroom and look through old pictures. You wish you could have spent more time with her, but imagine if she hadn't gotten into her dream school. The letter arrives, but it's not thick enough, and she opens it to find all the wrong words. Dear Ria, regrettably, we are unable to offer you admission. You wish you could have prepared her better. The road to college is long and difficult and not something to prepare for at the last minute. You need to start early. Starting early means knowing which courses to pick beginning in 9th grade. It means knowing which and how many extracurricular activities to do. It means knowing how to use summers productively. Starting early means getting your child into the college of your dreams. The process is different for everyone, and our experts know that. Relieve yourself of unnecessary stress and let us help you plan ahead. UCEazy, University and College Admissions Made Easy. If you could turn back time and change one thing in your life, what would it be? When it comes to
So, all right. So did that video come through, David?
Yes, it did. It was perfect.
So, yeah, so with that, just for those of you who want to stay back, more than welcome to. I'll repeat some of those slides. For the others, thank you so much for finding the time to attend. For the students on this call, we wish you all the best, and especially for the seniors, please try to manage your stress in whichever way you can over the next 15 or 45 days, whatever the case might be. So let me go back here and share those slides. David, which one did I skip from?
Yes, could you pull them up?
Yeah.
You've done this one? Yep, keep going. Keep going.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this one you kind of touched upon right around here. So this might be a good one just to quickly review.
All right.
And then the next one's after that.
Okay, great. So for those of you, the parents and students that are looking for professional guidance with this college admissions process, what we offer is a team of college admission experts like David Campos, and they will work with your child on a one-on-one basis, either over video, just like we are meeting right now. 95% of our clients meet exactly this way over this technology, but we have options for in-person meetings as well. Now, we have curriculums that start from 8th grade till 12th grade. So you can either follow that curriculum that I'll share in a second, or you can just say, I need help in specific areas. So we want to be able to support you in whichever way. For the seniors on this call, the thing that's causing you the most anxiety is essays. We know that. Financial aid for parents of seniors, that's what's causing you the most anxiety. We can help with either of those things. For kids in 8th and 9th and 10th grade, right now, what you need to watch out for is extracurricular strategy. For 10th graders, testing strategy as well. We're currently supporting 500 students. Our experts, we have currently 25. These are listed on our website. They have an average experience of 15 years. They're minimum of a master's. Some are PhDs, and for some, the experience goes 30 years. Several of these, actually 25% of our team, are current application and essay readers for UCEazy, University of California, Berkeley, Davis, Irvine. There are several that are admissions officer, were admissions officer at top tier private colleges. But above all, the most important thing, especially for students of early grade, is that majority of our counselors, like David Campos, they are school counselors, or were. We are big believers that was a big theme of today's presentation. We are big believers in that college admission is not just about SAT scores or taking a child that's already ready and applying and all that stuff. We believe that the child herself or himself, the child has the high school journey has to be a good one, academically, emotionally, from an extracurricular perspective, socially. So by having school counselors on our team, these guys work with hundreds of students. And in their experience, they work with thousands of students. So not only can they help with college admissions, but they can help with developing that unique, stress-free child for whom high school is a successful journey. So moving forward, just an example of our curriculum. And this, again, is available on our website in the free resources section. So in the 8th grade, we will talk right away. If you join today, we'll start with extracurricular strategy. In December, we would have first conversation around summer planning, because there are certain activities that need to start where the registration needs to start early. We will help you with course selection for 9th grade, or if you're a 9th grader, coursework selection for 10th grade, which is a hugely stressful thing for most immigrant families, including mine. Then we will help you for 8th graders. In May, we will sit down with you and coach you on what should you expect in day 1 of high school. In the class, outside the class, etc. Otherwise, what happens is that students from first-generation immigrant families, the parents would drop off the kid at school, and the kid had no idea what to expect. For 9th graders, when the program starts in July and August, we would have a couple of sessions with you again to help you transition in. For 10th graders, we start adding things like testing strategy. When should the student take that first test, SAT or ACT? Where are the free resources available? Should you, the family, should you pay for a professional test preparation company or not? How does one deal with testing anxiety? What do you do if the test scores are not good? All of those decisions. And then we start talking about, at 10th grade, we start talking about how should you think about what to study at college or what are called majors. In 11th grade, our program becomes much more complex and comprehensive because now you're getting close to the application date. So we put together a complete plan for the application process. We start working on recommendation letters, like David talked about. We start working on your resume, which is a collection of everything that you have done, similar to how parents have a resume in the corporate world. And then for 12th grade, we have a program listed on our website, but to most of you, because UC applications are due on November 30th, in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, most private college applications are due by January 1st, so not much time. So if you guys need help with college list, financial aid, essays, resume, we'll be happy to help. Our engagement model, the way this works is, step 1, contact us. through our website or call. We would schedule a completely free 30-minute meeting with one of our experts where we will understand your child's specific situation, what your aspirations are. Based upon that, we would recommend the best program. And this is a completely free session. After that, you can sign up for our program, or most of our clients would take a baby step, which is what we recommend. Start with 1 hour, see what counseling is, whether you like the counselor before you commit long term. And for those families which may not be very fortunate from a financial perspective, we have monthly payment plans available. And just to incentivize you to start with at least the first hour, we are offering the first hour for today's attendees for $100, provided you order by tomorrow. Now, how do our monthly payment programs work? So these are essentially different prices for different grades. This follows the curriculum that we have. All details are listed on our site in the pricing section. And once you sign up, we take care of the entire process. And this is the last slide I wanted to cover today, which is why UCEazy. So the first thing is, as I had advised students and parents earlier, please look for some expert to advise you. And what I'm going to say next, I say that with utmost sincerity. You don't need to get advice only from us. There are options available. If you are in smaller towns, maybe not. But in bigger towns, there are other companies that may offer college admissions guidance. They may, whether we are better than them, that's a different discussion. But please get help from someone. Don't, as they say on television, right? Don't try this at home yourself. So next time I run into one of you guys, especially parents, if you say you've chosen a counselor, it's not UCEazy, I would still give you a hug, guys, because that is the right thing to do. Now, the other thing is our focus is on the whole child, as we discussed. So for the parents, please don't believe, or please don't think that you can be a passive observer to your child's high school journey. You need to be informed as much as you can so that you can guide the child well. And the best way to do that is by attending our webinar series, which, as I mentioned before, the first of a 4-part series is next Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific. The second part of this is our counseling program for 8th and 9th grade that enable the child to make a successful transition into high school. And above all, in terms of counseling, as you compare us to our competitors, our big differentiator is we offer you the highest quality counselors, but at relatively affordable prices. There are some other free resources that you can check on our website in the free resources menu tab, including recording of today's session, recordings of previous webinars, excellent blogs. And the feedback form, again, just requesting you to fill that. And one last thing, that if you saw value in today's event, this was a free event, but at the least, if you can like our Facebook page, if I can ask you to do it now, because all of us are so busy that you will forget about this, that will be a big help. And so I'm going to stop sharing. And thank everyone for taking the time to attend. To the students, obviously, our best wishes to you for your high school or your 8th grade journey. To the seniors, best wishes for the remaining season. And to the parents, we applaud you taking the time on a weekend to help your child with this process. Thank you so much. We hope to see you soon. David, do you want to say something in passing?
Did you want me to answer any of these questions, or just kind of leave it at that?
I think we are beyond time.
Sure, so that sounds good. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. As Vinny mentioned, please reach out to us if you want some consultation. And of course, any one of us counselors can answer some of these questions. So the more questions, the merrier. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. And I wish you a good weekend. And please visit our website and ask anything that you have questions about. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much, David.
Yep, no problem.
Bye for now.
Bye.